Do you want to delve into the world of African mythology and learn more about the gods and what I'm saying right now? Well, there is one way, the Culture membership. It's on Patreon, and for only $5 a month, you get exclusive content, ad-free episodes, exclusive polls, fan requests, and a special newsletter, which I will be making in 2024. So, if you really want to delve into the world of African mythology, then I suggest the Culture membership. And also, as a special deal for listeners, I will give you a 7-day free trial. So a whole week of free for the membership. So, check out the Culture Show membership today. And welcome to the Culture Show, the show where I talk about African mythology and how it relates to us today. I'm AC3, I'm a total mythology geek. I love all mythology, and I've been curious about African mythology. So I decided to learn more about it, and now I will tell you what I have learned and how it relates to us today. On today's episode, we will talk about how Agembo outwits Olukun. It's part 4 of the creation story, so stay tuned. On the last episode of the Culture Show, we gave you a quick introduction to the almighty Orishas of Yoruba mythology and how they got their powers. Now, I was going to talk about how inequality came into the world of Oloran until I read my book called African Myths and Legends. Shout out to them. And I found this story. Agembo outwits Olukun. Turns out it's right after Olukun washed out the whole world, which means it was a part 4 of the creation story. So like there's part 1, part 2, part 3, and now I'm going to hit you with a part 4 today. What happened after Olukun washed out the whole earth and how Agembo tricked her. It's going to be an exciting story, but first up, character introductory. Character introductory? So first we got Agembo the chameleon. You might know him from part 2 of the creation story. He's the messenger for Oloran. Then there's Orunmila. He's your destiny predictor. Olukun, the god of the seas and waves. And the ruler of the sky and supreme god, Oloran. And those are pretty much all the characters. So let's dive in to Agembo outwits Olukun, part 4 of the creation story. When we last left off from the creation story part 3, Olukun almost washed out the whole earth, and Orunmila had to save it, and he did. But even after Orunmila had returned to his home in the sky, all was not yet settled. More embittered than ever before by her defeat, Olukun began to consider ways in which he might humiliate Oloran, the god who had allowed Obatala to usurp her kingdom. Now, the goddess was a highly skilled weaver, but she was also an expert in dyeing the clothes he has woven. And knowing that no other sky god possessed greater knowledge of making clothes than she does, she sent a message to Oloran, challenging him to a weaving contest. Oloran received her message rather worriedly and said to himself, Olukun knows far more about making clothes than I will ever know, but I cannot allow her to think that she is superior to me in anything. Somehow, I must appear to meet her challenge and yet avoid taking part in the contest. But how can I possibly do that? He pondered the problem a very long time until, at last, he was struck by a worthwhile thought. Smiling broadly, he summoned Agembo, the chameleon, to his side and instructed him to carry an important message to Olukun. So Agembo climbed down the golden chain and went in search of Olukun's dwelling. The ruler of the sky, Oloran, greets you, he announces. He said that if your clothes is as magnificent as you say it is, then the ruler of the sky will be happy to compete with you in the contest you have suggested. But he thinks it is only fair to see some of your clothes in advance, and has asked me to examine it on his behalf, so that I may report to him on its quality. Olukun was happy to accommodate Oloran's request. She retired to a bathroom and having put on a shirt of radiant green cloths, she stood calmly before the chameleon. But as the chameleon looked at the garment, his skin began to change color until it was exactly the same brilliant shade of the skirt. Now Olukan put on an orange heel cloth. But again, to her astonishment, the chameleon turned a beautiful shade of bright orange. One by one, the goddess put on skirts of various bright colors, but on each occasion, the chameleon perfectly matched the color of her robe. Finally, the goddess thought to herself, this person is only a messenger, and if Olukan's servants can reproduce the exact colors of my very finest cloths, what hope will I have in the contest against the supreme god himself? The goddess conceded defeat and spoke earnestly to the chameleon. Tell your master that the ruler of the sea sends her greeting to the ruler of the sky. Say to him that I acknowledge his supremacy in weaving and in all other things as well. So it came to pass that Oluran and Olukan resumed their friendship, and that peace was restored to the whole universe once more. The end. So that's the story of how Agembo outwitted Olukan. Part 4 of the creation story. Now don't worry, there are no other parts of the creation story. This is the final part. So thank you for listening to the whole series of how the creation story was made according to the Aruba. Thank you for listening to that. So, how the story relates to us today? Well, first, relationships with nature. Agembo is chameleon, and he had to help Oluran with his problem by sending messages down to Earth. And you know what? Chameleon also helped Orunmila give out power to all the Orishas. So it's interesting, the relationship between the gods of the Orishas and of nature and the animals. And we should kind of have the same relationship with nature. Like, don't be cutting down trees. We actually need those to live. And please, and also treat all the animals kindly, because you never know when they can help you. Like eating a turkey on Thanksgiving. Turkey's food. And so make sure you treat all animals kindly, because you never know when they can actually help you. Next is smartness. Because Agembo outwit Olukan, which means he was pretty clever and tricky, but he was also smart, because he knew he could change shades of color, and he changed it to match Olukan's skirts. So it's good to be smart, which is why you kids just stay in school. And that's how the story relates to us today. Time for today's question of the day. And since Thanksgiving's coming up, I have a Thanksgiving question. And the question is, what are your favorite Thanksgiving traditions? Well, in my family, for lunch, we have a Charlie Brown lunch. We have jelly beans, we have pretzels, and we have bread. Everything that Charlie Brown made for his people on the Charlie Brown movie special. Also, we have started watching The Wizard of Oz every Thanksgiving. The old one, not the NBC one, the one with Diana Ross. So what are your favorite traditions? Let me know in voice messages and comments, and maybe your answer can be featured on the podcast. And that's the show. Thank you for listening to The Culture Show, the show where I talk about African mythology and how it relates to us today. Since that was finally the final part of the creation story, I will now do how inequality came into the world through Oluran. Also, happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and let the holidays begin. Also, make sure you give us a 5-star review and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next episode. Bye! It's the holiday season, which means it's time to shop till you drop for other people. So, if you need the latest shirts, hoodies, and mugs, I know where to look. I am making merchandise for the Culture Show. Yep, you heard me right. Merchandise. Shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more, representing African mythology and its gods. All this is coming soon to Amazon for the holiday season to give to your loved ones. So, if you're looking for a cheap shirt and hoodie that's still fashionable for your loved ones this holiday season, make sure you check out the Culture Show merchandise coming soon.